Hello. In this video, I will be breaking down the components of my team's lesson plan, which was created to teach the following learning objective, HSS 1.2.1. Scholars will be able to locate their local community, California, the United States, the 7 continents, and the 4 oceans through maps, globes, or diagrams with 10 out of 14 places. This explanatory video will be broken down into 4 sections. 1. Contextual and pedagogical foundations. 2. Tenets and practice. 3. Assessment analysis. And 4. Metacognitive reflection. Let's begin with the contextual and pedagogical foundations of my team's lesson plan. First of all, we are working with a first grade classroom at Wilson Elementary, which is in the Tulare City School District of California. Here is a chart showing the class demographics. There are 24 students in this classroom. In this classroom, 3 students have a foster parent, 2 students have same-sex parents, 2 students have 1 parent, 8 students have divorced parents who have remarried, 3 students have divorced parents where 1 has remarried, and 5 students have both biological parents. There is 1 student whose home situation we do not have information about. Of these 24 students, 1 has a speech impairment and 1 has dyslexia. 16 students are English speakers, 5 are bilingual, and 3 are emergent bilingual or English learning students. 9 students have a lower socioeconomic status, 3 have a middle socioeconomic status, and for 8 students, that information is unreported. In our classroom, 13 students are girls and 9 are boys. For 2 students, that information is unreported. 1 student is African American or Black, 1 student is American Indian or Alaska Native, 17 students are Hispanic or Latino, 1 student is Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islander, and 2 students are white. For 2 other students, we do not have any information about their race or ethnicity. These are all factors which need to be considered when designing a lesson plan that serves our students by being accessible to all abilities and using strategies to reach all students, which is the definition of inclusivity as emphasized in the Volz, Sims, and Nelson text, Chapter 1. Our lesson utilizes the universal design for learning, social justice education, culturally sustaining pedagogy, anti-racism, and translanguaging in its pedagogical approach, while being mindful of student intersectionality. Let's take a look at what our lesson is about and what methods we use to teach it. Universal Design for Learning, or UDL, is an approach that presents information to students in a variety of ways and allows for them to respond in a variety of ways, making it suitable for a wide range of abilities as defined by the Volz, Sims, and Nelson text, Chapter 1. Social justice education involves full and equal participation of all students. It examines diversity and systems of power and privilege that lead to social inequality. It encourages students to debate and critique all of the classroom content as defined in Hackman's text titled 5 Essential Components for Social Justice Education, page 104. Culturally Sustaining Pedagogy, or CSP, seeks to foster and sustain linguistic, literate, and cultural pluralism while keeping education something democratic or student-led, described in the Hackman text from pages 103 to 105. Anti-racism in education, or AR, means viewing our work through a lens of equity, making our instruction student-centered, being culturally responsive, seeking to understand students' stories, and asking students what they need, as explained by Dina Simmons in their video, 6 Ways to be an Anti-Racist Educator. Lastly, translanguaging is making use of a child's full linguistic repertoire to make meaning, a powerful learning tool described by Dr. Ophelia Garcia in their YouTube video on the topic. As far as intersectionality goes, we have 1 student with a speech impairment who is also an emergent bilingual, has a single parent, is Hispanic or Latino, and is of lower socioeconomic standing. This student may experience difficulty understanding and communicating in class and lack academic support at home because their single parent may be busy making ends meet. As a result, this student will receive the support they need that is built into the lesson in accordance with UDL, which will be described in the following section of the video. Additionally, we have 1 student who has dyslexia and is American Indian or Alaska Native, an ethnic group that has been historically marginalized. The student may experience difficulty understanding written language and, as such, will be given tools to help them with reading or spelling, such as an electronic reader, which is considered an assistive technology according to the Volz, Sims, and Nelson text, Chapter 1. An aid will also be present for this student. Now let's move on to discuss these tenets in practice. The universal design for learning can be found in many places throughout our lesson. The first example of this is in the Engage Open section, where students are shown 10 picture cards with foundational lesson vocabulary, including translations into the students' home languages. Students come into the classroom with varying background knowledge, so this resource is beneficial for everybody, although it was embedded into the lesson with our English language learning and bilingual students in mind. Additionally, to ensure full and equal participation of all students, especially since English fluent students may be more competent and quick to respond to class questions, the teachers will call on the less responsive students who are likely to be English language learners or the student with a speech impairment. This opportunity and encouragement for all students to participate is an example of social justice education. To ensure that bilingual and English language learning students are able to share the information that they learn as effectively as their English fluent peers, they will be paired with one another so that they are able to speak in whichever language is the most comfortable for them. This is an example of translanguaging in our lesson. Next, I will discuss how this lesson utilizes formative and summative assessments and how diverse learners are engaged in this process. During the Engage Open section, the teacher is constantly asking small questions to students to evaluate their background knowledge on topics such as continents, maps, and globes. This is a formative assessment. Practice. Students are paired up and asked to find locations on a map, giving teachers insight into whether the students are understanding the material. This is a formative assessment. During the body section, students will independently choose a station and work by themselves to complete diagrams, create a mini globe and label it accurately, or color in and label the locations on the map as outlined by the learning objective. This is of course practice, but it will be treated as a formative assessment by the teacher. It will show the teacher what the students understand, as well as where they need further support, all the while giving the students multiple means to demonstrate their learning, and a choice on how they want to do so. Finally, during the evaluation closed section, students will have a blank map where they will accurately place the locations of the 14 places with 10 out of 14 locations accurately in accordance with the learning objective. This is the summative assessment for the students, and they cannot be given any help by the teacher at this time. Lastly, let's take a look at what metacognitive reflections took place in the making of this lesson plan, including thoughts, challenges, and successes, and how those things influence the final product. On November 12th, I wrote down my confusion about how we should write a teacher talk script for facilitation without getting into the content itself. What we decided to do as a result was to brainstorm how we anticipated conversation with students would go, and then write this down to the best of our ability, complete with which teacher would say what, and about how much time would be needed to do so. We went into great deal with our responsive teaching scripts, helping the students understand vocabulary related to the lesson, guiding them in navigating a map of the United States, asking guiding questions in their chosen stations, and facilitating transitions between stations. In this way, content was inevitably touched on in the teacher talk script, but the information would not be fully delivered to students without the other lesson materials, such as worksheets, which we attached to another Google document. On November 26th, my teammate Savannah wrote down the question of whether the same barriers could be used for multiple sections in the lesson plan. As a group, we discussed this and decided that, yes, the same barriers might exist for different parts of the lesson, and therefore should be written down in the appropriate places. One barrier that emerged several times was that, when the teacher is asking open-ended questions to the class, English language learning students may have difficulty understanding the teacher and or responding quickly enough to keep up with their English fluent peers. We made note of this barrier in 3 different places in our lesson. As a result, we brainstormed ways that we could overcome this barrier using the universal design for learning and social justice education as discussed previously in the video. On November 28th, I wrote down my thought that it was wise to place our essential questions at the end of the Engage Open section, because by then students will know what a map and globe are, enabling them to show the teacher what their minds can do with that information. This metacognitive reflection did not yield any new development in our lesson plan. However, it did reassure my team and myself that there was no better time during the lesson that we could ask our students these essential questions.